Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today I'm going to be showing you guys a Warlock build that literally gives you your super in almost 30 seconds if you have enough ads. And also is amazing for ad clip and damage. And it used to be really good last season, but I think this season it's better due to the new armor stats and some other things I'll show you later in the video. But without further ado, let's head into the abilities and fragments and aspects. Now let's move on to our abilities. First, for the obvious choice, we're going to be using Chaos Reach because it's the one that is the most OP super out of the two arc supers other than Storm Trance, and it also ties to our exotic armor, which I'll get to later. And then for our class ability, it's up to you for if you want to use Healing Rift or Empowering Rift, but I like to use Healing Rift to get that healing. Glide is also up to you, but I use Burst Glide just in case. Now for the melee, I use Chain Lightning, but not for the reason what most people would think, because most people would think to use Chain Lightning for the jolt, but it's actually for the shorter cooldown, so we could use this aspect more often, which I'll get to later. And then for our grenade, it's up to you, but I like to use Storm Grenade because it's just a nice little lightning storm. Now for our aspects. The first most important one is going to be Electrostatic Mind to give us ionic traces from defeating jolted enemies and making it so when we pick up an ionic trace, it makes us amplified. This is important because since there's a fragment like this that does do the job, it does have a cooldown every time you get a kill. So that's why we're gonna be having this to get ionic traces with almost every single kill. Now for the second aspect, most other builds will use the new Ionic Sentry one to get, as surprise, an Ionic Sentry when you get kills, which can chain lightning. But I'd actually like to you should use Lightning Surge though, because it gives you an extra really overpowered ability, plus it can jolt, which is what we need to proc the Electrostatic Mind and give us an Ionic Trace. Now finally, let's move on to our fragments, which is going to be Spark of Discharge, so that arc weapon final blows have a chance to get an additional Ionic Trace, and when we collect an Ionic Trace, grants us a stack of Bull Charge, so we can get Bull Charge everywhere. Spark of Ions to give us another way of getting extra Ionic Traces. Spark of Frequency, so that melee hits increase your equipped weapon's reload speed and stability for a short duration, which will be able to be helped with this. And while amplified, the effects are increased, but we're going to be amplified almost all the time, and it increases stacks of Bull Charge from all sources. Finally, Spark of Resistance. This is an obvious choice because it just grants us free damage resistance, but if you want some more jolting, you can go ahead and run Spark of Shock to make out arc grenades jolt targets. Now let's move on to the weapons, armor, and mods. First of all, starting with the exotic armor piece of choice, we're going to be using GMAX stabilizers, so our chaos reach lasts longer, and collecting ionic traces while using the chaos reach will increases duration, and when not using it, collecting ionic traces, it gives a massive amount of super energy. And also this season, GMAX Stabilize is an featured armor piece, so you could use it if you're using the Event Guard Day modification when doing fireteam ops or solo ops, or any ops. And then for our exotic weapon of choice, we're going to be using Delicate Tomb, so that when we collect an Ionic Trace, it makes the next shot be able to jolt targets, those targets will get more Ionic Traces, and then it'll keep infinitely going. Now let's move on to the mods. For our mods, for the head, we're going to be having 2 hands-on. For the arms, we're going to be having 2 heavy-handeds. For the chest, it's going to be obvious reserves. resist. For the legs, it's going to be absolution, insolution, and recuperation. And finally, for the classics item, it's going to be just distribution, powerful attraction, and special finisher. Now that is going to be everything you need to know for this build guide. So without further ado, go out there, get this build, go absolutely spam chaos features and be like Goku. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and goodbye.